computer? Okay, we're live.
Hello.
Well, hello everyone, and welcome to the Trademarks Made Easy Podcast. My name is Susie Hickson, and today I have the fabulous Leta Deley. I'm so excited to have you here today, Leta. Let me tell everyone a little bit about Leta. So I'd asked Leta if I could have her media bio, and she said, "What do you think I am, famous?" So you're going to get a good little taste of Leta here. But Leta is a 21-year-old wife and mother. Right, you're 21.
Yeah,
I'm 21. I am too, forever 21. Blogger and entrepreneur. She manufactures 2 lines of natural supplements, and one's for pets and one is for keto lovers. She was inspired to create lines of supplements that make a difference in humans and animals. And I'm a big, big animal lover. For her keto line, she's absolutely crazy about keto, which is really cool. And she believes that keto can be done in a really healthy way. She loves to help others achieve optimal health naturally. She runs a keto support group, and she's helped over 13,000 people get healthy naturally. And I'm assuming you're not including dogs in that number, so that could be even more. Yeah. And Leta's my client, and I'm lucky enough to have gotten some awesome samples from her for her pet supplements. And so I know that you could add 1 to that number because I know it helped my little Sadie, who is my little dog. She may make an appearance in a minute if I can wake her up. She knows that healthy keto has really changed her life in so many ways. She believes that her health problems have been resolved. She has incredible energy and stamina, and she really looks at keto as a lifestyle. And she feels better now than even when she was in her 30s. So I was kind of kidding about the 21, but
yeah, add 31 years to the 21, and you'll have the 52 number. So
yeah, I tell people, like, as my birthdays increase after 21, it's like the 5th anniversary of my 21st birthday, but we're well beyond the 5th anniversary of the 21st birthday. So but yeah. The cool thing is that Leta has been inspired to develop a line of 100% natural keto products that not only makes our lives easier, but makes them healthier. And she's really proud of their Intentionally Bare keto product line. And one thing I love about one thing that she said is that she never wants to compromise health for weight loss. And I think that people really get that confused. And if anyone is listening who's kind of wondering, like, why is Susie speaking with someone who does keto? Or, who's into health? Leta has been one of my beloved clients for several years now. Mm-hmm. And one thing that I've wanted to do with this podcast is, in addition to me talking about the importance of trademark selection, which I could talk about every day, all day, I like interspersing these podcast episodes with interviews of industry experts, which by now you all have heard several. And also brand owners, because I feel like there's so much that we can learn from fellow brand owners in this space. And part of that is because, we love to learn people's stories, and they really stick with us. And we like to hear people's mistakes, because learning about reasons people made mistakes can help us improve in the future. And so all of this is about constant improvement, constant learning, and, of course, taking those mistakes and trying to figure out how we can do better. And so, Leta, I want to thank you so much for being here today and being so willing to be open and transparent about your journey with your brand, your product line, and, some of the mistakes and successes that you've had over the years. Because if you didn't have the successes, obviously you wouldn't be here. But of course, there are mistakes that have been made. So tell me a little bit about yourself and how you got into supplements in particular.
Well, thank you so much for having me on. Of course, we've known each other for years now, and so this is exciting. It's like, ooh, one podcast. So how I got started, well, I actually started with the pet line first. I'll just quickly talk about that. When our dog was paralyzed, and I had to really revive him back to health. And so back then there really wasn't a lot offered for dogs as far as supplements. So I had to basically compound my own. And that's what I was doing. I was going to health food store. I was getting, I'm really into natural health. I always have been. So I was compounding my own mixtures for him. He's made full recovery. He's just perfect now. So that's all great. So I was already doing that. And then I myself, I've always struggled with my weight. I've always had health issues, even though I was very, very healthy and into natural things. So when I started keto myself, when I researched it and thought, wow, this keto sounds really great, and I started doing it, it literally changed my life. I mean, I can't even, hardly explain, but it's like a 360. So when it did so well for me, I decided, hey, I really need to offer products that are 100% natural, because like anything, you can do junky diets, you can do junky keto. There's a lot of products out there that are not health first. And so it was hard for me to find the right product. So I decided to manufacture them myself. So it's just been really a love for me, because it's helping people to get healthy. And then also, selling my own product line, which is really fun. I absolutely love that too. So it was just kind of a perfect match.
It's a win-win.
Yeah,
I
really
feel
win-win.
like, there's a lot of different perspectives on this in the private label world. Some people say, go for what makes money, right? Like, don't worry about anything else. Like, do you want to make money or not? Like, go for products that make money. My experience has been the people that have the most success in private label and e-commerce are those who saw a need, and maybe for themselves or for others, and they work to fill that need, right? And that's exactly what you've done. You knew that you had this need to get healthier, and instead of you can do the research and look around, but you know what, if you don't see it, you're an entrepreneur, you go create it yourself.
Yes, exactly. I totally agree. First and foremost, I would only myself personally, I would only manufacture anything that I feel passionate about, that I would 100% use and feel is the best product for either myself or my pet. So that's number one. And number two, out there in the all kinds of spaces, really, it's really easy to kind of cheap out, I guess, and make things not as good to save money. Like, as a manufacturer, I would make more money if there were certain ingredients that I included, or certain ingredients I didn't include, or if I didn't grow organic, if I didn't do non-GMO, if I didn't do grass-fed, pasture-raised, like if I didn't do those things, I would make more money. And to be honest, a lot of people may not know the difference. There's a lot of people out there that don't pay attention to that. It makes a difference to me. So, I will always go the high road. Because, like, if I'm not going to use it, I'm not going to sell it. So right. It's got to be absolutely the best. So I think when it comes to, you just have to feel passionate. Whatever it is that you're wanting to sell, or you have to feel passionate about it, because I think going for the easy or whatever sells, I guess is what you said, I think that'll wane pretty quickly. And when there's hard times, which we will get into here a little bit about when things happen, that's when your resolve really kicks in. What is your why? Mm-hmm. What is your reason for doing this? Because that's what's going to really keep you going.
That why is sort of your anchor that brings you back to why, or, why is it worth doing this and fighting for this? And every entrepreneur in every business, will face obstacles at some point during their business, or some type of resistance. Mm-hmm. But kind of going back to that why really just reestablishes sort of that resolve to continue moving forward. And I feel like in this, I work with a lot of different sellers, but I feel like people who have a passion for their product, or maybe it is a hobby product. Maybe they found a sport they loved. I'm thinking of a particular client right now who happens to be absolutely in love with a particular sport. And so he's kind of developing a product line around it. And I probably should have him on the podcast at some point.
Yeah.
And he, there's just this passion there. And I know that if he faces obstacles, with respect to this product line, and he will. Something crazy is going to happen coming out of China. Something's going to get
Inevitable.
customs. I mean, this stuff is going to happen, right? So he's going to revisit his why. He loves his sport, and I feel like that's what analogous to what you're doing.
Yes, and I've seen, as I'm sure you have too, Susie, in what you do, so many sellers. I mean, I am in so many different groups, and I've taken so many courses, and I'm part of different, I guess groups where we all come together and talk about things and stuff. And so many people that have left the industry because they never did have that real passion for what they did. And so as soon as a few things happen and the cracks start coming, it's sort of like, oh, I don't even want to do this anymore. Like there's no inner drive because they didn't, they don't have that passion for what they do. And it's inevitable that something is going to happen. I don't think it's a matter of if it's going to happen, it's when it's going to happen. And so if you have that passion for what you do, it will always be your driving force, I think. It'll help you through.
Now, could you imagine if you were like selling just like garlic presses or fidget spinners and you encountered some of the obstacles that you have?
Oh yeah, that would have been game over.
You're like, I don't care about these garlic presses that much.
Right.
So let's talk a little bit about that. Let's get into that just a little bit. Your biggest hurdle to date, Leta, and this is something that I've kind of been the hand holder a little bit in some ways, because I didn't necessarily help you in the nuts and bolts on resolving the matter, but I've seen what has been going on from, I guess, a 10,000 foot perspective. So let's talk a little bit about the intentionally bare transition and evolution.
Yes, well, I mean, so how it all first started, of course, is because I have an amazing trademark lawyer named Susie. And so, there was a different brand name. And so we put that in there and it looked great. I mean, on paper, everything looked really, really good and safe and stuff. But of course, there's no guarantees. There's absolutely no guarantees out there if anyone's going to have a problem with your trademark. And so, it's not like, I guess in a perfect world, the person would put in for their trademark and they would literally just sit on their hands until it's gone through. But like, who does that, right? So it's like you're waiting for it to come through and you go ahead and you do your labels and you have your products. And I'm building my brand like crazy and I've been blogging for, quite a long time, way before I even had products out. And my support group was also before I even had products out. I felt it was very important to give before I would take. So I really wanted to give my knowledge and my help and my support to people before I actually sold anything. And so anyways, that was all going on and everything's great and and then, we got into the 30-day opposition period. Another company had an issue with the name. And so that, it was really difficult because the decisions that you have to make, that are hard. They're really, really hard. And and especially I've never been in that position before. So I wasn't really sure, how to do it, but you really, really helped me. So I just want to thank you for that because you really guided me as to I didn't even understand exactly what was happening. So you laid it all out. So I knew exactly what was happening. And then when I decided that I wanted to fight it, then you pass me over to a litigation lawyer because that's what happens at that point is you have to go into a different direction. But you always stayed in contact. You always asked me how things were going, and I asked for your advice, and we talked through the whole process. So that was really good. But that's the essentially that is what has happened to me. So it's like you're in the middle of really getting a foothold out there in the market, and people are really getting to know who you are, your voice, who you are as a person, but also your brand. And then right when you're in smack middle of it, all of a sudden you realize I may not be able to keep that brand name. And so I was trying to still grow, but in the back of my mind, how much do I really want to push this? Because I'm not really sure what's going to happen until we get to the point of hashing this out. And it's anything legal always takes forever.
Yeah.
I don't know how you have the patience for it. I mean, it's not like you just snap your fingers and in a week you resolve something. I mean, it's months and months. And what was it like 8 months
Eight
or
months
something.
probably. Yeah, when you were kind of in a state of limbo with
Limbo.
or like purgatory. Because
Exactly.
it's hard to make decisions going forward when you have this outstanding legal issue. And
Exactly.
I think that one kind of piece of guidance I can give that would be applicable to anyone here, just keeping in mind that there's never a slam dunk with a trademark, right? Like,
Mhm.
and you can be using a trademark for 5 years. You can have a registration for a trademark and get a cancellation proceeding against you, and so I tell people, when you start the branding process, when you select a trademark and you do your clearance searches before you file and before you start using it,
Mhm.
it's still never 100% guaranteed. There could be marks that don't come up in a clearance search. There could be improper guidance. There could be things that an attorney's not thinking about. I mean, there's a lot of variables that go into a clearance search and an opinion. So you do the best you can with the information that you have at that time. And I tell people, kind of getting to the point of my guidance, is that really, slowly ramp up the dollars that you spend on marketing. As you become more confident in your branding, which can only happen over time, you get through the examining attorney's review, you get through that 30-day opposition period, you get the trademark registered,
Mhm.
you take the proper steps to maintain the registration, you continue to spend money in marketing and advertising, you get a bigger foothold in the marketplace or a bigger presence. That's when you can continue to spend and increase those ad dollars. Of course, it's a weird catch-22 with the USPTO. You have to actually be using the mark. And
I
isn't
know.
that the weird thing, right?
It is.
You
It
have to
is.
be using the mark before the USPTO will officially grant the registration.
Exactly.
It's
But
a
going back to, oh, I'm sorry, going
no.
back to what
I'll say
you were saying about, you know, having a passion for what you're doing and, having vested interest. And I think that's where, at first I was like, devastated, of course, and who's not going to be. But I realized going through this that, it's a name. All the work that I had done with my blogging, with my support, with helping people, that was what was important.
Mhm.
So changing a name has actually been relatively smooth. People are realizing, because I've explained it to them and all
Sure.
the social media and my group and everywhere that it counts, everybody knows. And really, at the end of the day, it's just a name. A name doesn't necessarily mean like the success of your brand, I guess is what I'm saying, is like it's you that you put into it. So if you're forced into a situation where you have to change it, it's not as devastating as you think. At the time it is, trust me, I really did think it was
It
devastating.
seemed devastating at the time, right?
No, it certainly did. Yeah, it certainly did. But it's
Yeah, I mean, I feel like obviously I know that there's a huge importance to that brand name. Now, with that said, I like to look at these matters in a reasonable perspective, and I like clients to keep in mind that if they have to go through a brand name change throughout the life of their, at some point, and the hope is that it happens sooner rather than later. And always keep in mind that you're going to have more customers in the future than you do now. You're going to, hopefully you're going to be around a lot longer into the future than you have been in the past. So therefore, you shouldn't take such a negative approach to having to do a brand name change. And this is kind of something that, we were talking about before we even hopped on the podcast, is I think the importance of putting your resources towards positive, right? Instead of fighting and fighting and fighting for
yes,
something negative.
100%. I agree.
Take the experience and the obstacle and think about how can you flip this around and make this a positive experience. Put
Yes.
your time and your money and energy towards positive change for your business. And I think that one thing that you touched on that is really important is sort of how you tapped into your market and the people that already love you and know you and your product, and you involve them sort of in this change, and you let them know about that, and you let this this obstacle kind of create a touch point for you, for your customers. And, I think that's a great idea. Now, did you actually get your customer base involved at all in the actual name change?
I had thought about it, but I decided against it because I don't know. They would probably have wanted the word keto to be part of it, and I had decided as a business decision that I was not going to do that because my long-term goal is it's a lifestyle brand, so I didn't want to peg it specifically for that. So I know that they would have been disappointed if that had happened. Yeah, and but anyways, I did include them in a lot. Once we had made our decision of what we were going to do for our next name and stuff. And actually, I will just go back to is that it was your suggestion back in when we were first opposed, and we had discussed about we're not sure how this is going to go and everything, and we discussed the idea of why don't we put in for a couple more trademarks, just get them in, just put them in there and just see. And at the time, I thought it was a good idea, but I thought, okay, like you spend this money putting this in and, I'm going to win. I mean, that's kind of how you think at the time.
Well, you got to be positive, right?
You got to be positive, yeah. But, it was the best advice ever, honestly, because once all this was over and obviously I didn't win. And, but one of the names, in fact, out of the two, my absolute favorite one that I really wanted, we got back from mediation and everything, and it was only a couple of weeks, and it was already through the 30-day opposition period. And it was just like, wow, what a relief that was, just to have that part over, because I feel that's the biggest hurdle. Like you said, other things can happen down the road, but I think this is the biggest one that any business has to face, is getting through that 30 days. So that was a huge relief, and that was great advice on your part. So I'm very thankful for that. And but yes, I did include my group is the main audience that I talk to. We all help each other. It's a really good support. And so I did a little video and explained to them what happened, and it has been nothing but love and support. I didn't really go into all the details of it. Got to keep it pretty general or whatever, but they were totally supportive. So I think as long as you're telling your audience, whatever audience that you have, if you explain to them what's happened. And you know what else someone mentioned to me that I never even think about it, but when it comes to logos and things like that, they're like, do you know how many big companies out there change all the time? They may not necessarily change their name, but like their logo look is completely different. And a lot of people, totally, they're like, okay, most people, when they see a brand, they go for what the logo looks like a lot of times. And these big, gigantic companies have changed their look completely, and somehow they survived. So, it's not that big of a deal, I think, if you educate your audience and let them know what's happening, and they're part of it.
Yeah, I think that's a huge part of it, is when you are having to go through that transition or that evolution with your trademark, if it is a design logo, to proactively educate your audience. It is so important to educate, because so they can follow kind of along with that transition. So, but yeah, it's not unusual at all for brands or for companies to evolve their logos over time. Like, look, you could do a quick Google search for the evolution of the Apple logo. Like, they look totally different now.
So true. And Starbucks, Starbucks. Huge companies. Changed completely.
It's not unusual. And one thing I want to mention that you just talked about, and I think that this is why we need to be careful about the extent that we involve our audience or our fans or our tribes into the trademark process or the transition process, is because sometimes they don't fully understand your brand vision. And with respect to you not including the term keto, I think was a very smart move. And something I harp on a lot to people is being very careful with descriptive terms that you put within your trademark, because that could be a little clunky.
Yes.
If you start, rolling out different, or if if you start going in a slightly different direction, or if you do roll out additional goods or services related to that trademark, you're going to have to think, well, does that current trademark make sense from the marketing perspective for this, for these particular goods? So I think it's wise to have not included that descriptive element keto in the trademark.
Yeah, thank you. I think so too. I think, and it's funny too, because I mean, I always had a vision for the company, for sure I did. But after going through this and then really, really focusing on what is it that you really want? Like, what is it that you really see? And it really helped me to get clear. And when I really, really thought about it, it just really solidified the fact that I did want it to be a lifestyle brand. There's so many other things that are so healthy and good for us that can branch out into. And through this process, it's actually just opened up my thinking in a different way. I'm not saying it wouldn't have happened with what I had before, but I think I was leaning a little bit too much on the name. It was cheeky, I'll just say, and it was great. I mean, don't get me wrong, it was an awesome name. It was great. And everyone that heard it said, oh, that name's so great. But you kind of sometimes rely a little bit too much on that and not on the real reason why you're doing what you're doing. Mm-hmm. So it just helped me to really get clear. So I feel like in a way it's helped me and benefited me as a person, but also for the company.
I think that's awesome. One thing, I love your trademark. I love the one that you had before. I love the one that you have now. And, you know, the one now is intentionally bare. And I've talked to you a little bit in the past about, let's think about intentionally. I love that, you know, because you're proceeding with life or your weight loss journey or your goals to improve your overall health,
yes,
well-being by being intentional. And I love that. So can you speak a little bit, Leta, about like how you came up with intentionally? I know how you came up with intentionally bare, but you know, just that whole concept. Sure. I'd love to know that.
Well, way back, because that was part of the old brand too, was intentionally. I've just always, that word has always been in my life, and it's always in the back of my mind. I really do try to live my life with intention. I live my life with purpose. I have set things that I do every day to visualize and to help create the life that I'm wanting. I live my life very healthy, and I know what I put in my body makes a huge difference on in my health. So that word I just always loved it. I wasn't, you know, I was sort of playing around with different ways of saying it, but intentionally is just what ended up, you know, being the word. And in doing this brand name change, like I said, in the old one, I was leaning too much on the second word. And now that I've changed, it's way more about intentionally. And that really was what I wanted to begin with. But I guess because the other name was so catchy, intentionally got kind of lost, actually. Mm-hmm. But now in this one, with intentionally bare, it really just says everything I've always wanted to say. Like you're living your life with intention to be as healthy as possible, with as bare as possible, you know, not more colors, flavorings, or ingredients of any kind. And, you know, whether that morphs itself into other categories, that will always be the mission. So it really says that. So, and now, like in the marketing, our whole marketing has changed. Instead of focusing on that other word, now the focus is on intentionally. And I like it so much better. It's really authentic. Yeah, I'm really happy with it.
I love it. And that makes me so happy that you kind of made that transition and that you've gotten to this point of acceptance. I know that there was a lot of resistance there with that initial transition and having to go through that. But it seems like you are to a point of acceptance and you're at peace with it, and that maybe you are going a step further in that you are excited about this.
Yes, I do feel that.
I would like to know a little bit about how you've changed your marketing. You said that you all are going to be focusing more on the element intentionally.
Yes, definitely. So I've got a really amazing team now. It used to be kind of like, you know, mom and pop, you know, how it usually starts off, right? But now,
when you first start off, for sure.
It was like me by myself, and then me and my husband, and then, you know, and now we've got this awesome team. And we all were, you know, just brainstorming and talking, and we all felt so strongly that intentionally really needs to be the forefront of everything that we talk about in all social media platforms, in the group, on the products and everything like that. Basically helping people to, instead of just sort of living our lives with whatever comes along, why not decide how you want it to be?
Mm-hmm.
And why don't we just intentionally decide that this is how we're going to live our lives? So whether it's losing weight, getting healthy, or just creating the different things in your life that you want to be there, do it on purpose.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So that's definitely in everything that we're talking about now.
See, I love that. And you pointed out a minute ago something that didn't initially register with me, because in my head, the element bear kind of had a different meaning, but it's almost like it has two meanings, right? And bear, I didn't even really think about it meaning that the products themselves are more whole, right? Like the food products and supplements that you want people to, to research and become more aware of they don't have a bunch of fillers and things like that. They're more,
exactly.
Yeah. So I think that is so cool that you've kind of taken that word bear, and it almost has like this, it's almost like a double entendre. Not quite, but.
Yeah, sometimes it's what's not in it, which is just as important as what is in it.
Right.
Because there's a lot of, there's some really crappy things out there that are in products that people really just don't have any idea. They just see this word and they don't really know what it is. And then they're having that every day, and it's just not good for us. So it's keeping it as fair as humanly possible, and keeping it pure. So yeah, so there'll be definitely more marketing around that.
I said the pizza I had last night was not very bare.
Oh dear. Well,
I fell off the wagon. You would have been really disappointed.
Well, we all have, I will come right out and say that I am not perfect in any stretch of the imagination, and we all have our times of going off, and that's the other benefit of our support group is just, there's no judgment. There's no judgment whatsoever. And I think a lot of us have been on really bad, crappy, horrible diets that they weren't good for us, for one thing, and then they were also super restrictive, and then as soon as you weren't doing it, then you felt guilty, and then you got that whole mental thing happening. So it's like the whole thing. So if you aren't perfect, that's fine, but what are you going to do about it tomorrow? So is it going to be like, oh, I blew it, I'm not going to do it for 6 months? Or are you going to say, okay, did it, okay, back on today, and let's just start fresh or whatever? And I think that's a much better attitude to have, because no one's perfect.
Yeah, other than beating yourself up. Like you just wake up the next day, you wake up with intention.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's right.
One thing I think that you do that other people need to do as brand owners is create a community or a tribe. Now, it doesn't apply. I don't think that concept necessarily applies to every business, right? Like, okay, if you are selling fidget spinners, right? Like you don't necessarily have like your fidget spinner tribe, although there might be one out there.
There could be.
People who love fidget spinners, right? They're hobbies for everything. But you have kind of built up this support group, right? And it's all around the brand. And I think that doing that for a lot of different brands is really one way to kind of drive home the recognition and the loyalty of the consumer, right? Kind of like what you said, like, even though you had to do a name change, your peeps, excuse it, your peeps are still hanging with you. They're still hanging with the source. It doesn't matter that the source indicator, the trademark, changed. They are still with you, and they are still with your products. And I'm wondering, and this is I'm thinking aloud about how something like that applies to other brands that might be out there. If you're a brand owner, that's something that you need to think about. And I'm going to give kind of a weird example because it's at top of mind. My significant other is really into fishing right now. Like, I don't even know where the heck this has come from, right? He's always been an outdoorsman, but he's never really gotten into the fishing thing. until of late, right? So now he has all these lures, and I mean, it's crazy. And he's like working on different like little fly fishing jigs. I don't know what all this.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah,
anyway,
our family did the fishing, so yeah.
okay, so you probably might know what's going on. I mean, you would know what's going on here. And one thing that like he'll bring home all this bait and these lures, and I always look at the brands just because that's what I do. I pay attention to them just to see like who are these people, and have I heard of this company? And I guarantee that a lot of these fishing lure companies, or just kind of fishing related companies in general, have a huge following.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And they're probably developing sort of their own tribe around their branding. And I guess the reason I'm bringing this up is it's just one of those really niche things that, if you own a brand and you're in a particular niche, you can kind of develop your own tribe of people. Like, I don't want to call it really a support group, but like a community, maybe a community is the better word, where people come and talk about their lures, and they show pictures of their lures, and maybe they made one, right? Maybe they made a fly on their own. And, I think that concept can apply to a lot of different niches.
It sure can. And it's not just, mine's a little on the easier side, of course, because we're supporting each other and we are trying to help each other to lose weight and get healthy. But I've heard of so many other groups out there where you would think, boy, would that ever be difficult to get a group together or a tribe or people to, just be part of the movement, I guess.
Yeah.
And I heard of one. I was at a conference, and I actually forget the brand name right now because it was a men's hair care product. And what they did was they just started off with, hey, I'm this dude. I have a hard time with my hair. I'm gonna develop this line of products because I find it very difficult, whatever. So, like all of us, we just start off on our own or whatever. And it has grown into this massive community of men, all ages, showing pictures. It's mostly Instagram. So because that's their age demographic. I'm more Facebook of who are into my products, but they do Instagram mostly, and they're showing pictures. This is my hair. This is why I did this. Oh, I colored it this way, and I did, so all those kind of things. And the people that are part of that have really come together to really support this company. And so when the company says, hey, we're thinking of doing this thing, what do you guys think? They're getting their opinions, and they want their opinions. Yeah. And then they use that information to decide what new products they're going to do. And then, of course, when they come out with the products, they have the support. So I really think it could be done for pretty much anything. It's really how you're going to go about doing it and knowing where are your people hanging out. Because some of my people hang out on Instagram, but I'm going to tell you the majority of my people hang out on Facebook. And so I know that. And that's where we hang out. So I guess just knowing that is where you're going to want to, have your group.
I think that's a really important point, Leta. I'm glad that you brought that up. One thing that when I work with people on brand name selection, I kind of take a step back and say, who are your people, right? Like, and I kind of hate using this because I've seen it used so many times, but your ideal customer avatar.
Right. No, 100%. Yeah.
Who are these people and where do they hang out? You need to know this. Like, this is super important. And I think that this is really a great juxtaposition as an example that that your peeps and your age demographic, which is 21, right?
Yeah.
Plus a few, in mind too, I'm kind of I'm in a weird stage where some of my peeps might kind of hang out on Instagram, but a lot of my peeps are probably more on Facebook, but it's a weird.
Yeah, you could be a half and half or,
I think it's really important though for people to know where your audience is hanging out, because you don't want to be putting a lot of effort, time, money, energy into, social media postings and hanging out and things like that on platforms where your people aren't. Right? Like if your peeps are not on Instagram, Leta, this, they're on Facebook. Yeah. That's where you go hang out. That's where you go do your lives. That's where you go talk to people. That's where you all go have your coffee, your coffee with Leta. And this hair care company that you mentioned, they probably know that their customers are what, millennials? Is that what the youngsters are these days? They're millennials.
I think so.
Yeah. So And they are on Instagram and they know that. So I think people need to really sit down and think about where your people are.
Right,
And
exactly. Where they feel comfortable.
yeah, and that's a good point too. Where do you feel comfortable? Because you can find your people, right? But some people are more comfortable with Instagram. Some people are more comfortable with Facebook. Some people are more comfortable with Twitter, which I'm not really sure what's going on Twitter at any.
Yeah, I don't really either. I can get on Instagram. I'm super great on Facebook. Twitter, I can see it, but I don't really get it.
There's a lot going on, like a lot of postings. I mean, I have a Twitter page, but and I follow people on Twitter, but I feel like there's a lot of just talk, but there's a lot of speaking, but no listening.
Yes, exactly.
I don't know. So let me ask you, Leta, 2019 is here. And actually we're like, wait, we're
like halfway.
We're almost halfway through with 2019. We are getting ready to have summer solstice, woohoo, which is like the official start to summer, which I know you're probably really excited about.
I'm very excited.
Yeah. I'm like, please get me back to winter immediately. Please give me snow.
Yeah, that's where we differ, Susie. That's where we differ. You like to be on the ski slopes, and I want to be laying on the beach. So
yes, and you're up in Canada, and I get so jealous. I'm like, I want to be in the snow.
And then in winter, I'm coming down to you. So that's you got to get out of Dodge here in Canada.
You know what? We should do a house swap.
That would be a great idea. Oh my gosh, that's actually a super great idea. Okay,
we'll talk about that one of these days. That would actually be hilarious. Yeah. So I live in like a little cabin on a farm. I don't know, but I tell you what, it gets hot down here. It gets really hot. So
that's fine by me.
You know what? You'd probably love it. But so yeah, 2019 is here, and really, you are probably starting to think about, I guess, Q4 and product positioning. Where is your product line going in the rest of this year, Leta? Like, and what do you see for you all in terms of a growth strategy? What types of steps are you putting in place right now to get to Q4? And maybe this isn't the best question for you because, I feel like supplements are kind of a personal thing. So maybe people aren't really buying them as gifts, and that might be kind of something to talk about. But, what are you doing to help yourself grow in 2019? And are you looking at any steps to kind of help with sales in Q4?
Yeah, well, that's interesting because I think if it wasn't supplements, Q4 is a big deal. I mean, that's where everyone lives and breathes by their Q4. I don't really put that much emphasis on where we are in the year, other than in my space, January is huge and September is huge. Those are the two biggest areas I find because it's always a start fresh time. So I look at those more so. I found that our sales were actually very good in Q4, even though they are supplements, because again, the approach that we take is that, you need to think about yourself and you need to take care of your health in order to take care of other people. So you're very important. As far as the growth of the company, there are still a lot more keto supporting products that we have coming out, and we're slowly rolling those out. We have 3 more up and coming in the next few months. That's awesome. But we're also going to be branching out into, I talk a lot in my blogs and in my group, just about really good health, things that we should be doing. A lot of us, 50 plus, and we really have to think about what we put in our body is just so important, and we want to be as healthy as we can in the next phase of our lives. So we're going to be branching out into regular supplements as well. They absolutely totally work with keto, but they're good for even if you're not on keto. And in fact, actually, all of our products are not necessarily, you can be paleo, you can be low carb, you can be just looking for good health. They are not specifically for keto, which is exactly why we don't have the word keto on them, but they do lend themselves very, very well to people that are on keto. But we are going to be branching out into just, your regular human supplements, the ones that make the most impact on health.
That's so exciting. So will those products, do you think, be out before the end of 2019?
Yes.
That's so exciting.
There's one specifically that isn't keto specific, and it will be the first one coming out in that line, and it will be out in about 2 months. Cool. So
I love to see that y'all are continuing to grow. That's great.
Thank you.
So if you could give 2 pieces of advice To anyone who is interested, and let's talk about, well, let's not talk about supplement category specifically, but let's just talk about, e-commerce in general. If you could give two pieces of advice to people who are listening to this podcast, what would it be? And this could be based on prior mistakes.
Okay. Absolutely. Whatever it is that you're going to do, I really do feel it's very important that you have a passion for it. I mean, if someone's going to get into drop shipping or something like that, I don't think you have to have a passion for it. But I'm saying if you're going to manufacture your own line of products, you need to feel really good about what you're doing. So that would be my number one advice. And my number two advice is there are platforms out there. I don't know if I should say specifically, but I mean, like Amazon, I'll say specifically. Okay, Amazon. It's an easy one to get started on. And if you know what you're doing, you can do really, really well on it. And I'm really eternally grateful for what Amazon has done for us. But what can happen is you can kind of get pigeonholed into it, and you don't really focus a lot of times on other ways to grow your business because you're doing so well on this platform. And I don't want to say anything negative about it, but like anything that you don't have full control of, it can affect you. So if for some reason you got suspended, or for some, who knows what the reasons could be, but they could make that decision that you can't sell anymore, or you can't sell that one product anymore. And maybe it takes you a while to dig yourself out, and maybe you never dig yourself out. But I guess don't have all your eggs in one basket. I think it's really, really important to think about your company overall. Selling off your own website, being on other platforms, being in multiple places, talking to people in many, many different social media spaces, and don't just focus on one thing, because you just don't know what can happen.
I think that's such a solid piece of advice, because I see a lot of danger in companies becoming Amazon centric, or brands becoming Amazon centric. At the end of the day, I look at it as Amazon's the landlord, right? And you're just the tenant. And Amazon's like, come sell on our platform. We're going to give you the key. We're going to, let you do all of these things. And then you go to the platform, and then you realize, I'm getting a fee for this and a fee for that. And at the end of the day, the ROI might not be so great. Or like you said, Amazon suspends your account, or a competitor does something crazy, or, it could go on and on, right? And then there you are, and you've been dependent on Amazon because you're the tenant, and they can kick you out at any time. So there is a big danger in becoming Amazon centric, or becoming too dependent on any platform. And I've seen this in a lot of different industries, or in people will say, well, why don't I just do all of this on Facebook? And why would I pay for the use of another platform for whatever I'm doing? Why can't I just use, at the end of the day, these are platforms that are, just permitting you to use their platform and nothing more. They could take away that privilege at any moment. So I think that's super wise to not put all of your eggs in one basket. That's such a great piece of advice, Leta.
Oh, thank you. And I think that comes back again to what we were saying about having a place to hang out, and a group kind of thing, like just having that audience kind of thing. Because, if something happened on a major platform such as Amazon, it's like, hey guys, sorry, so we're not there anymore, but guess what? We're here. So at least there's other places. But how do you tell them if the only place, like, I know a lot of sellers, and they are phenomenal Amazon sellers. They don't have any community. They don't have any tribe. They don't blog. They don't have social media. They just rely on the fact that they get really, really good sales on Amazon, and they kill it. I mean, they are making tons of money. But if they get suspended, they are done. They literally have nowhere else. How do you possibly go to all those people that have loved you to say, oh, by the way, we're not there anymore, but you can find us over here, if they even have an over here? How is that even going to happen if you have nowhere to talk to them? So I think it's really important to start building that up. And like I said, when I first started, I was developing the products. I was working with the plant. We were deciding, what we were going to do, and that took some time. And I thought, in the meantime, I have a lot to give. I have a lot to say, and I would love to help some people in their keto journey. So I just started talking. I just started talking to them through the blogs and through the Facebook group before I ever had a product. I think that's another piece of advice that I would give too, is give before you try to receive. Give
that.
to the people that you're wanting to talk to,
I love that.
and be genuine about it.
I love that.
Really be there.
That's awesome. Leta, you've just been such a wealth of information. And I think what's been really cool about this conversation is you've given a lot of really good, tangible guidance for people, but also kind of motivational and inspirational. But I think that's where you are though, and that's one of the best things that you can provide to people. And I feel like, I don't know, I just love your positioning in the market. One thing that you mentioned is if someone is not able to, like if they get kicked off of Amazon and they can't talk to their customer, Amazon's not allowing people to collect email addresses, right? So there's a lot of value in sort of having your list,
Yes.
Your peeps.
Yes.
People that you can kind of reach out to and say, hey, I'm not on Amazon anymore. I got kicked off because, whatever. People might be killing it right now, Leta, on Amazon and doing, playing with the algorithms and the keywords and running these promos and Facebook ads and all this stuff, which I'm sure it's great. And I'm sure I wouldn't know the first thing about any of that stuff, but if Amazon disappears or pulls away those privileges, none of that stuff's gone, right? Like Amazon could hold the products, Amazon could hold your money, right? Because the money is going through Amazon at the end of the day.
Yes, it is. They hold all the cards, really.
That's really scary.
It is.
As much as it scares me.
Yes, it really does scare me. And that's why we do awesome on Amazon, and I'm really grateful. That's why I don't really like to ever say anything really bad about it, because it is really, really good. It's just to be mindful that you have to have other places to sell, other places to talk. It's just so important to not have all your eggs in one basket. And it's a little bit addicting, to be honest with you, because it's fairly easy. I mean, I won't say it's like super easy. There's a ton of work that goes into selling on Amazon to be good, but considering doing, like, say you were just selling off your own website, that's like a million times harder. But then those are your customers. Anything you sell on Amazon, those are Amazon's customers. It's Amazon sandbox, and you're just playing in it. Right? They own everything. So
they own the customer. Yeah. And so you have your own website, intentionallybared.com, and I'll link to that in the show notes. What platform do you use for that website?
Shopify.
You use Shopify?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it's really easy to use, and all their apps, they're so great, because there's all these things that I'm starting to get into now. Like we love to have fun in the keto group, and so there's all these fun sayings that you can say for keto, like keto makes your clothes fall off, and that kind of stuff. And so I had a contest, and I said, okay, you guys have all these great quotes, and we all say it all the time, so let's have this contest where everybody just submits whatever they think is really good or whatever. So everybody was doing that, and then I took the top, what I said, like the top 30 or whatever, and then I did a poll. And then, okay, so now let's vote until we get it down to like the top 10 kind of thing. And so now we're making t-shirts and all tank tops and things like that with all these really fun sayings on them. And when you have something like Shopify, it's like you just get an app. There's an app that connects to the print merch company, and then it merges right into your website. So I'm sure there's some really smart people out there that can use WordPress or whatever it's called, and do everything from scratch and code and all that. I'm not that person. So I'm the 50 plus Facebook user, Apple user, make it easy for me, please. And so I like Shopify. It just really connects everything easily and very easy to use.
So do they do the app that you mentioned just now that integrates, does that do merchandise?
Yes. Well, so the company that you would, right. So you just pick whatever, it's just something to look for. So if you're going to go with a print merch company, or you want to go with, maybe you want a subscription program to be part of your, so say somebody wants to sign up on your website and they want to have an auto ship, basically like what Amazon does, but you want it off your website. Well, then you would sign up with a certain company, they would have an app and you would integrate that app into Shopify. So I just look on Shopify to see what's available, and I make my selection on who I'm going to work with based on who has the app to integrate with Shopify. Because it really is so easy.
Yeah.
That's the best way to do it.
I love that. And I think that's really cool because you're involving all of your people in your tribe in the direction of your business. Now, I'm not sure if you're making any extra money off of the merchandise and the print on demand, but one thing I do talk about in my course is the importance of selecting trademarks that have legs. And what I mean by that are trademarks that you can sort of build certain sayings around. And it sounds like that's kind of what you're doing. And an example that I'm thinking of right now is the Dick's Crab Shack. Do you remember that? Or actually, I bet you don't have that in Canada.
In Canada, no, we don't have it.
It's called Dick's, and they have this fun, like they have all these like fun like little sayings like, I got crabs at Dick's, and it's really funny, right?
That's hysterical. Yeah.
They've kind of developed this whole like quirky, weird, brand, and then they have all these like little sayings like that, and so they're able to sell all that merchandise in association with. It's actually a restaurant.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm sorry I didn't mention that earlier. That would have made a little more sense, but.
Well, I thought you said I was figuring like a crab shack or something.
It's like that. Yeah. It's like you find these places that are like a lot of beachy resorts and stuff. So just kind of, but yeah, they've developed like all these like little sayings. And so they sell all of that collateral along with, at their restaurants. And I think that if you can do something like that with your trademark, it's just another way to really drive home the branding, the brain tattoo.
Yes.
Pulling the tribe together.
Yeah, getting them all involved in it was really fun. I mean, there was contests all along the way. Like if anyone's ever interested in doing something like this for their brand, it was fun. It was like every day, everyone that commented and, put in their idea, everyone was put in a random number draw, which is super easy to do on Google. You just literally, you Google random number draw.
Random number draw.
you put in like how many numbers you're talking about, and it just gives you a random number, and then you just count down, from the start, and you count down, say, okay, you're number 36, who's number 36, and so every day there were, I was giving away products, and so it was super fun. Like everyone had such a good time, and then when you're hearing the quotes and stuff, I mean, it's just super funny to hear what people have to say.
Yeah.
And a lot of people were actually including the brand name. Now, I've decided with the first batch coming out, I'm sticking with the traditional, really funny keto quotes with maybe just, with our brand name maybe on one, just for anyone who's interested. But as time goes on, I think we will definitely be including the intentionally in different things and things like that. So we'll be expanding. But a lot of people right from the get-go were including the brand name in the quotes that they were given. So I thought that was really interesting. It means they were really getting involved and they were really thinking about it. And then the other thing I thought was kind of is fun. So like on the front is going to be the, keto makes your clothes fall off. But then where do you put your logo? So I didn't want it to be like intentionally bare. Like, nobody wants to see that right there. They want to see the funny keto quote. But wouldn't it be cute to have it right above your bum?
That would be cute.
Right? Yeah, so intentionally bare above your bare bone. Anyway, so that's where the logo is going to go. So it's there, but it's not, front and center kind of thing. So
I think that's good. You could put it there. You could put it like on the arm, like the little sleeve, like right along.
Yeah, we were going to do that, but then we're also doing tank tops. So we thought, to keep consistent. Yeah. So
I was thinking like you want it to be somewhat visible, like you said around the back, that would be cute. Or even like on the side maybe, but I think that having, if you're going to be doing these contests, I think it's really a good idea to have your trademark visible, right? Because people are going to see that, they're going to associate the trademark with fun and whimsical. So I think that that's such a smart marketing move. And one thing I've also loved about this conversation, in addition to all the like really solid advice and guidance. And the inspirational part is, I feel like you talked about marketing and some ways to get that, the brand out there and have people talk about it and the buzz. Regarding the contests, I think contests are a lot of fun. I get sucked into those myself.
Yeah.
I know that Rafflecopter is, there's rafflecopter.com, I think. And I've heard that they do some pretty good contests or kind of help facilitate that. So if you're ever looking for a platform to help with that, of course, Google's random number generator is free, right?
Yes, but I'll look into that. That's a great idea. I'm always looking for ideas for contests because
they have ideas for contests and ideas for, I think, for like growing your email list. If that's kind of part of what you're wanting to do. Nice. So you should definitely look into that. So Leta, tell me, another thing I've enjoyed about this conversation is it's super obvious that you do love what you do, right? Like you are passionate about this and we've talked about it. What's your favorite thing about what you do?
My number one favorite thing, and this really goes for both the lines because I talk to a lot of customers with so Deley Naturals is our pet line, and I talk to a lot of customers there too. And my hands down number one is when someone is struggling with something and then our products can help them. Our products and also advice. But I mean, it's just to, help people either with their pets, their pets are suffering from whatever type of a problem they're having, or we are having problems as humans, and to be able to just give them some ideas, and then for our products to actually help them. And when they come back and say, I did this and I did this and we're using this and I cannot believe the difference and I just thank you so much for that. Honestly, it's goosebumps down my arm. I just get so happy to see people and animals get healthy. I mean, just for anybody to improve their lives in any way, especially when it comes to health. It just is my absolute driving force in everything I do. I just love it.
I think that one way to look at it is that health resonates, right? Like if you are not healthy, you cannot take care of other people. If your cup is not full and you're not taking care of other people, you can't fill up other people's cups. And I talk about that sometimes with family members about the importance of taking care of themselves, right? Like, I feel like people get very engrossed in the care of other people, which is very important, but they fail to take care of themselves. And as soon as they start suffering, right? Like they're not going to be able to help other people. And that's where your health resonates. It's like vibration, or like a drop of water, or like a pebble and a drop of water. And like you see the puddle or the little waves resonating out. Like that's why it's so important. I feel like for people to take care of themselves and to not overlook what they're putting into their body, which we can't all be perfect when it comes to that. But I'm not a nutritionist. Like, I don't pretend to be one. I don't play one on TV. But I feel like I am an attorney, but I feel like food can be like 75% of our health.
Oh, yeah.
Could it be more? I mean, I know, like, if I eat junk, it comes out. Like, it comes out in the way I feel, or like my face, my complexion. But if I'm really focused on eating healthy, like I'm eating the rainbow, it comes out in a more radiant presence. I feel better. I don't feel so foggy. And that's everything. And I'm like, oh my gosh, can I take care of my health without resorting to prescriptions? And I feel
that's a whole other conversation right there. But it's so true, because it's like, what we eat affects us mentally. It affects us, physically. And then when you're saying about, medications and things like that, there's so many ways that we can help ourselves and we can get off all these pharmaceuticals. Like, I'm not saying there's not a time and a place. There for sure is a time and a place for pharmaceuticals, but I think the majority of the things that people take, they really didn't have to, but they're looking for a quick fix. And sometimes you have to put in the work. You have to put in the work to give yourself a healthy foundation. And when you're having struggles on certain things, the first thing you should think of is, how can I handle this naturally before going to the doctor and getting your prescrition? I mean, that's just like that's a whole other thing right there. We could have a full podcast just talking about
we could, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have been guilty of that, right? Like thinking, okay, well, I'm just going to go get a prescription or whatever. And as I've gotten older, because I mean, I have been a junk food, like I look back in my life, I'm like, oh my gosh, you know, I used to eat so unhealthy. And it's probably like the last, probably 10 years where I've been much more mindful and intentional about my dietary choices. And like I mentioned earlier, you know, I fall off the wagon every now and then. And I guess everyone does, but I am trying to be better about proper food choices and being very careful about what I put into my body 95% of the time. 5% of the time it's it's
and so it should be, right? We all have lives and we should have that 5% and enjoy it. But I think when you know, when you go into something like, you know, say you're vegetarian or you're paleo or keto, whatever it is that floats your boat, right? But once you're doing it and you're really feeling it, you know, you're really feeling this awesome energy. Then when you veer off and do your 5% or whatever and have at or have fun, but really think about how you're feeling, because I know I feel like crap. Like I notice it right away. Like I think, okay, I had my one day or whatever, but like so happy to get back on the wagon the next day, because I don't think as well. I don't physically, I can't work out the way I usually do. I'm tired. I mean, it's just that bloated, you know, it's just that whole thing. And it's like, well, do we want to feel like that?
Yeah.
Or do we want to feel really good? So it's really just paying attention to how you're feeling. And I think you'll naturally just keep on going in more of a healthy way.
I think that's so important. I always think about how, like, you know, some days if I don't want to run, right? Like if I'm just like, ugh, I don't want to run. But then I'm like, think about how I feel after. Like almost always feel so much better after I go for a run. And I think
that's how I feel at the gym. It's a love-hate thing. I don't want to do it. So like, just get in the car. Just get in the car.
Just get there.
And then once you're there, you know, you're really glad you did it. You feel great the rest of the time. You feel accomplished. You feel proud of yourself, and you physically feel better. Right.
And the thing with the food, it's if you can kind of have that mindset when you're, before you like eat the donut, you know, think about
think about what the next, how you're going to feel after. Think about that when you're thinking about the donut. How am I going to feel after?
Yeah.
You know?
Exactly. And that's what I try to always tell myself, like, okay, how am I going to feel after I eat this pizza all day? It almost always comes back and, you know, bites you. So, but Leta, thank you. This has been such a great conversation. Like I said, I feel like we've touched on so many really cool things, from like strategy, marketing, health, inspiration. We're not going to talk about pharmaceutical companies. We will be nice. That we can save that for another conversation.
I really, really appreciate you having me on. And, you know, I just want to say again, like I had said before, is that, like in the business world, nothing is ever going to be just linear, is it? I mean, things are always going to happen. And it's really, I think it's how you deal with it. And so when I was going through this, all the trademark stuff and everything, like I said, at the time, it was pretty upsetting. Now I look at it as, you know, literally could be the best thing that ever happened. But what I just so appreciated was your advice and guidance along the way. And one thing I did want to say is, if I had to do anything different. So in that process, if there was one thing that I could have done different, there actually is one thing that I would have done different. So when we were when we were opposed and you presented it to me and you said, okay, this is what's happened. And then you said, I'm going to go and talk to the other lawyer. We're going to talk about, you know, what's happening. And then you came back and you said, in my experience, I think, you know, you are right. You are 100% right. By the letter of the law, you've done every single thing right. We have done every single thing right. But that doesn't mean that someone cannot oppose you. That can happen at any time. Do you want to spend your energy, you know, fighting, and it's going to be a lot of money? Well, I should have listened to that then, because looking back on it, it did take a lot of, you know, it was a negativity in my life. It was really hard to have that on my shoulders for over 8 months. And it took a lot of money. And I kind of wish that I had just listened to you at the beginning, because I believe that you were really trying to lead me towards, listen, I've seen this many times. And even though you are right, for sure, it would be prudent to think about maybe using a different brand name at this time, and what could we look at and what other options or whatever. And I feel strongly that you were trying to guide me in that direction, but I was just like, nope, I'm right, and I'm fighting it, which I'm sure you get all the time. And I just dug my heels in. And so if I could do anything over again, that's what I would have done over again. But it's all a journey.
It is all a journey, right? And I can only give you guidance kind of on what I've seen in the past, and like what my experience has been when these types of situations come up. And there's not always the perfectly right answer, right? Like and there's always a lot of variables, right? I mean, you could have dealt with someone who wasn't so aggressive, who was who wanted to settle a lot quicker. Like, so there's so many unknowns that
That's true.
Information that you are not privy to at that point. And it all, but I think that you took the right steps. Like you're like, okay, I mean, you dug in, you dug in a little bit, a little more than
I did. And then when you go to mediation, I don't know what other people's definition of mediation is, but my definition of mediation is that let's try to work out a deal.
Right. Let's mediate. Let's talk about this.
That was not the case once I got there. So, it's you like you said, it's easy to look at a crystal, like to see afterwards and look back and say, should have done, could have done, whatever. But at the time, you just deal with what's in front of you and what you think is the best.
And that's one thing that I see a lot of people kind of get trapped into, is a little bit of there's ego involved, a little bit of ego involved, and that's natural. We're human. We have egos.
Sure.
And I'm not like, oh, Leta, you got such a big ego. Like you, I'm not like that. But I'm just saying that I think it's perfectly natural to kind of want to protect what you feel like is your rightful thing. And it does take some stepping back and looking at the big picture, and even meditating, like doing.
Oh, yes. Yes. It's, what is the word? Like it's humbling, I guess is the word, because at first it was indignant. It was, how dare you? I worked hard on this. I did everything right by the law. I did. And it wasn't ego in the sense of I'm so great or anything. It wasn't that. It was more that I did everything right. How dare you say I can't do this or whatever. And then it's a very, very humbling experience to realize, okay, conceding really is the best thing. But it's like eating crow. I mean, it's, you swallow it down, and it's very difficult to do. And that in itself was an experience. I did meditate a lot on that. I did a lot of inner work to get over that, because I did not want that to dictate the future of myself and my business. I did not want that going forward. So I really had to let that go. And that took some work. That took some inner work. I'm not going to lie. But it was worth it, because I have a different clarity now. I have forgiveness. I have, and it's all just going in the right direction now. So now I'm just happy. I'm just happy and excited. And I think if you can let that go, because, and maybe for some people it might be anger, everyone handles things in a different way when they lose. Basically, essentially, when you lose, how are you going to take it as a person? So whatever that is, man, just try to let it go. Just do what the work you have to do in order to let it go, because I don't think that you can really grow personally and for business if you can't let things like that eventually go, if you can't work on that.
Oh, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for all that great advice.
Maybe more than you wanted, more than you bargained for.
No, I love it. I think it's perfect. Let me ask you, Leta, where can people find you? Where is the best way they can find you and your brand, Intentionally Bare?
So Intentionally Bare, and as well as Deley Naturals, and that's my last name. So it's DELEY Naturals. And so we can be found on, of course, Amazon, as I've mentioned. So Amazon.com, Amazon.ca, and then a website for both. So DeleyNaturals.com and IntentionallyBare.com. So, and then all the social media attached, of course, to all those names. You can find us on any of those. Yeah.
One thing I will do is I'll put a link down in the show notes to your website, and I'll put it to the pet product one also. And it sounds like we're going to talk about a nice little promo code that we can put down there for people, listeners of the podcast. So I'm really excited about this.
That's awesome. Yes, I will actually make one up specific with the podcast and a nice good little discount there. And if you can put it down there, so on either brand, they can go there and get a discount if they want to check out the product. So
that sounds
thank
awesome.
you so much for doing that.
No, thank you for talking. I've been so looking forward to our conversation. I knew that you would be a wealth of information, considering the fact that you'd had kind of a significant obstacle in your journey. But I know that this will be super valuable for people who listen to this podcast to kind of keep themselves not just aligned strategically, but in a good mindset as they're going through this whole process. So thank you so much, Leta.
Thank you so much for having me, Susie. I really appreciate it. It's been great.
And we'll talk soon.
Okay.
Thanks.
Sounds great.
Bye-bye.
Okay. Bye-bye.